Are you struggling with addictions? You're probably thinking to yourself, no, not me. I don't have any addictions. But you didn't think about the food addiction, the sugar addiction, the caffeine addiction, or the fact that every time you pick up your cell phone, you start doom scrolling for 20 minutes. And when you put it down, you have this immense urge to pick it back up and do it all over again. Not to mention many other really negative potential addictions that you might be suffering from. The fact is that we all struggle with some level of addiction, and it has a lot to do with a chemical in our brain that is responsible for many of the mental and physical processes that we experience every day. That chemical is going to be dopamine. So let's go ahead and talk about how you can take control of your life by understanding how to control dopamine to a much higher level. Before we get started, I'm Dr. Nick Zarowski, and I really want to take a look at dopamine itself and how this applies to real life. Now, dopamine is responsible for regulating your mood, your motivation, your pleasure reward system, and even your physical function of your body. And so how does this apply to real life? Well, what happens is when we pick up that cell phone and we start scrolling, we get this huge dopamine hit. And that's not the only thing that will cause us to get this huge dopamine spike that will make us want to keep doing it again and again. This could be eating junk food. This could be eating a lot of sugar. This could be doing thrill seeking like gambling. It also could even be things like a porn addiction. And when you have this dopamine hit, what happens is you get this huge rush of it into your system. And every time you do this, you start to become desensitized to dopamine, meaning that you need more and more of it to give you that same pleasure. So let's go back to the social media scrolling. Well, one day you do it for 5 minutes. A month from then, you need to do it for 30 minutes just to get that same level of pleasure in the brain. But here's the issue. When you get these massive spikes of dopamine, there's symptoms associated with it and ones that you probably don't like. Symptoms such as anxiety, the inability to focus, mania, insomnia, meaning you can't sleep at night, poor impulse control, a feeling of intense excitement or euphoria, and also an increase in energy. That sounds great in some cases, right? Like, hey, let's get some more energy, but not all of those symptoms are good. And the problem is that when you get these huge dopamine spikes, you also are going to have some big dopamine lows because what goes up must come down. And the key here will always be to balance dopamine, not have highs or lows. But first, I want to tell you about the symptoms associated with low dopamine. It's going to be feelings like hopelessness and worthlessness. Who wants that? Self-destructive thoughts, inability to handle stress, tired after many hours of sleep, isolation, a lack of concern for your loved ones, also the inability to finish tasks, and anger over minor reasons. So you can see that not only can things like sugar or social media take over your life, but also it can cause some crazy symptoms. So how do you take control of this? That's the whole point of this video. How can we actually stop this from happening? Well, first of all, we always want to be concerned with breaking addictive behaviors because addictive behaviors are in most cases detrimental to our health. Like I said, using junk food or even sugar as an example, we could see how these easily can spiral out of control. One day we have 5 grams of sugar, and the next day we're having 50 grams of sugar just in order to get that same dopamine hit. We don't want that to happen. So taking control actually is important because we'll start balancing the dopamine levels in our body, and also what you'll find is you can actually use natural methods in order to boost dopamine in your body. Ways to naturally boost dopamine are going to be, well, go have a social interaction with a friend or a stranger. Also, exercise, going and practicing gratitude or doing something nice for somebody. And here's the thing too that you want to make sure that you're paying attention to in order to take control of the situation is that we don't want to just say, well, we have a bunch of sugar, we're going to go cold turkey and give it up. Or let's say that you have a hard time with social media or some other addiction. What we want to try to do is find lateral moves because this is what the research shows actually works the best. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you're addicted to having a can of soda every single day and it has 35 grams of sugar in it. So whenever you get that impulse to go and drink the soda, drink a glass of water and eat some fresh fruit. And when you eat that fruit and you drink that glass of water, there's a good chance that that impulse to have the soda will actually leave you. If you have an impulse to jump on social media, use that as a trigger to actually go have an interaction with a loved one. And so when you start making these lateral shifts and when you have these different impulses, swap them out and then that impulse typically will go away. And this is ultimately how you do a dopamine detox. And what has been found in the research is that when you start putting down social media and start taking control of these impulses, you'll find that these dopamine spikes will actually start to go away within just a 2-day period. And as a result of that, you're going to feel so much better. Mentally, you're not going to suffer with the massive amounts of excitement followed up by depression and so many negative behaviors that are associated with this high and low of dopamine. So I'm Dr. Nick Zarowski. Give this a try and see how it improves your life. It was great seeing you in this video. If you like this one, I think you'll like this video next.